There's something captivating about mystery, isn't there? When we encounter the unknown, it draws us in like a magnet pulling on our curiosity. Now think about how this plays out in human relationships. The allure of mystery isn't just about keeping secrets or being evasive, it's about allowing space for discovery, for wonder, for fascination. That space, that hint of the unknown, can transform the way others see and engage with us. We live in an age of oversharing. Social media encourages us to put everything on display, our thoughts, our feelings, our accomplishments, even our struggles. And in relationships, there's often this pressure to bear it all, to be an open book from the very start. But think about it. When a story reveals every detail in the first chapter, what's left to compel you to keep turning the pages? The most captivating stories, the ones that stick with us, unfold gradually, revealing layers as they go. Our relationships are no different. Now, when you meet someone, there's an inherent beauty in letting them discover who you are over time. It's not about playing games or withholding information. It's about recognizing there's immense value in pacing the journey. When everything is handed over too quickly, it can overwhelm or even diminish appreciation for the nuances of who you are. People value what they have to invest effort to understand. The power of mystery lies in restraint, not because you want to deceive or mislead, but because you want to honor the depth of who you are. Think of yourself as a vast landscape filled with hidden valleys and towering peaks. If someone truly wishes to know you, they will take the time to explore, to climb those peaks, and to uncover the beauty that lies in the details. It's a process that fosters genuine connection rather than surface-level familiarity. Now, why does this matter so much, especially in relationships? Because human beings are wired to seek what feels precious and rare. When everything is made immediately accessible, its perceived value diminishes. That's not to say you should withhold your kindness, your love, or your authentic self. Those things should flow freely, but the deeper layers of who you are, the dreams, the fears, the intricacies of your spirit deserve careful stewardship. It's also about self-respect. When you hold parts of yourself sacred, you set a tone for how others should treat you. If you reveal too much too soon, it can signal that you're willing to give everything away without first establishing whether the other person has earned the trust. By contrast, when you maintain a degree of mystery, you communicate that your essence is not something to be casually consumed, it's something to be cherished and appreciated. This doesn't mean you need to erect walls or play hard to get. Mystery isn't about distance, it's about inviting curiosity. It's about saying there's more to me than what meets the eye. And if you're willing to look closely, you'll find something extraordinary. It's an invitation, not a barrier. Think of the most meaningful connections in your life. Chances are they weren't built in a day. They unfolded through shared experiences, quiet moments, and gradual revelations. Those connections were strengthened not because you laid everything out at once, but because you allowed them to grow naturally with time and care. The same principle applies to romantic relationships. When you reveal too much too quickly, you risk overwhelming the other person or losing the opportunity to deepen the bond organically. On the other hand, when you pace your sharing, you create a rhythm that allows both of you to move together, building trust and intimacy as you go. There's also a practical aspect to this. When you keep some things to yourself, you give yourself time to observe and assess the other person's intentions. Are they genuinely interested in who you are, or are they just looking for quick gratification? By maintaining an air of mystery, you create a space where only those who truly value you will take the time to invest in understanding you. So let your story unfold. Let people get to know you one chapter at a time. There's no rush. In fact, the slower you go, the more meaningful the connection becomes. Remember, you are not a puzzle to be solved or a treasure to be claimed. You are a living, breathing masterpiece, constantly evolving. And masterpieces are meant to be admired, not dissected. In the end, the power of mystery isn't about hiding who you are, it's about honoring who you are. It's about recognizing that your depths are worth exploring, that your spirit is worth cherishing. When you embrace this, you create relationships that are not only lasting, but deeply fulfilling. And that's the beauty of it all. You don't need to chase admiration or attention. By simply being, and by honoring the layers of your being, you invite the right people to see you for who you truly are. In the space where mystery meets authenticity, magic happens. Think about the weight of trust. It's one of the most fragile and precious things we can offer another person. Trust isn't just about believing someone will do right by you. It's about letting them into parts of your life that you hold close, the parts that aren't for the world to see. And yet, how often do we give that trust away too easily, hoping it will anchor a connection or strengthen a bond? The truth is, trust is a gift, and like any gift of great value, it must be given with care. In relationships, there's a fine balance between openness and protection. It's tempting, especially in the early stages of connection, to prove your sincerity or your affection by offering up everything, your vulnerabilities, your dreams, your secrets. It can feel like a shortcut to intimacy, as though the more you share, the closer you'll become. But real trust, the kind that binds two people deeply, isn't built on hurried revelations. It's built on time, consistency, and mutual respect. When you reveal too much too quickly, it can distort the natural rhythm of a relationship. Instead of letting the bond grow organically, you're forcing a connection that might not yet be ready to hold the weight of your truths. Imagine planting a seed and dumping an entire bucket of water on it, expecting it to grow faster. What happens? The seed drowns. Relationships are no different. They need just enough to nurture growth, not too little, not too much, and certainly not all at once. Holding back doesn't mean being dishonest or playing games. It means being selective, discerning about who gets to see the innermost parts of you. It means recognizing that not everyone who enters your life is worthy of your most tender truths. This isn't about judgment or cynicism, it's about self-respect. It's about understanding that the parts of you that make you uniquely, you are treasures, not commodities. Sometimes, in our eagerness to build trust, we forget to allow the other person to earn it. But trust isn't something you owe anyone, it's something that's cultivated through mutual effort. And in that process, you gain clarity. You see who truly values you for who you are, not for what you can give them. The people who are patient, who show up consistently, who honor your boundaries, these are the ones who deserve to know the deeper layers of your life. There's also the matter of timing. When you share deeply before a relationship has matured, it can create an imbalance. The other person may not be ready to hold what you've given them now, not because they lack integrity, but because they haven't yet built the capacity to understand or honor it. And when that happens, you risk feeling exposed, even betrayed. It's not necessarily their fault, it's simply a matter of mismatched timing. Consider, too, the dynamic this creates. When you give too much too soon, it can set an expectation that you will always be the one giving, always the one revealing, always the one making yourself smaller to fit their comfort. But relationships should be mutual. They should be a dance where both people turns leading, both people take turns offering and receiving. When you hold back, you're not withholding love or connection, you're creating space. Space for the relationship to grow, space for the other person to show their intentions, space for trust to emerge naturally. And in that space you find something profound, the ability to protect your own heart without closing it off. You learn to stay open while being discerning, to remain kind while being wise. This is not about fear. It's not about building walls or assuming worst in people. It's about self-awareness, about knowing that your energy, your stories, your essence, they're not for everyone. And that's okay. The right people will understand this, and they won't rush you or demand more than you're ready to give. They'll meet you where you are and be willing to earn their place in your life. In the end, trust isn't about spilling everything onto the table. It's about setting the table together, piece by piece, and savoring what you've built over time. It's about recognizing that the journey is just as important as the destination. And when you honor the process, you create something far more meaningful than a quick connection. You create a bond that can withstand the test of time. So as you navigate relationships, remember this trust isn't a shortcut to closeness, it's the foundation of it. And the strongest foundations aren't poured in haste, they're laid brick by brick with patience, intention, and care. Trust wisely and let the unfolding of a relationship be its own beautiful reward. There's a delicate art to understanding what truly belongs to you and what does not. In relationships especially, it's easy to confuse the desire for connection with the need for control. When we feel a strong pull towards someone, there's a temptation to let that feeling convince us that they owe us something, a deeper commitment, an immediate response or access to their own private world. But the truth is, no one owes us their secrets or their stories, just as we don't owe ours in return. When you look at the dynamics of sharing, it's not about what's fair or unfair, right or wrong. It's about alignment. People share themselves when they feel safe and understood. It's a natural unfolding, not something that can be forced or hurried. When you try to coax someone into revealing more than they're ready to, what you're really doing is trying to alleviate your own discomfort with the unknown. And yet it's precisely in the unknown where true connection can take root. Think of it like this: a flower doesn't bloom because you tug at its petals. It blooms when the conditions are right, when it feels the warmth of the sun, the nourishment of the soil, the gentle touch of rain. Relationships are no different. You can't rush the other person into trusting you with their inner world any more than you can rush yourself into trusting them with yours. That trust is cultivated over time in the quiet spaces where words aren't needed to prove anything. When you give someone room to reveal themselves at their own pace, you're not just being patient, you're showing respect. Respect for their boundaries, their experiences, their process. You are saying, I honor who you are as you are, and I don't need to change or fix you to feel comfortable in this connection. That kind of respect creates a profound sense of safety. And safety is the soil where trust can grow. But what happens when someone withholds too much, when they give nothing in return? That's where discernment comes into play. You see, respect isn't about waiting endlessly for someone to meet you halfway. It's about observing the balance between giving and receiving, about noticing whether the connection is truly mutual. If it feels one-sided, if you're constantly the one opening up, making the effort, giving of yourself, it may be time to just step back and reevaluate. Stepping back doesn't mean walking away, it means making space. Space to see clearly without the haze of expectation or the pressure of your own emotions clouding the view. Sometimes in that space you'll realize that the other person wasn't withholding out of malice or disinterest, they were simply not ready. Other times you'll see that the connection was never as aligned as you hoped it would be. Either way, the clarity you gain by stepping back is invaluable. And here's the beauty of this approach: when you stop pushing, stop needing, stop expecting, you allow the connection to become what it's meant to be. If it's genuine, it will deepen naturally, without effort or manipulation. If it's not, it will fall away, and that's okay too. Not every relationship is meant to last, just as not every seed is meant to grow. The key is to trust the process and to trust yourself enough to know when to hold its boundaries on and when to let go. And there's also something profoundly empowering about this. When you release the need for immediate answers, for full disclosure, you free yourself from the grip of insecurity. You're no longer at the mercy of someone else's choices or timelines. You're standing in your own wholeness, knowing that your worth isn't determined by what they choose to share or withhold. You're choosing to honor your own boundaries as much as you honor theirs. And this isn't about building walls or shutting people out. It's about allowing things to unfold naturally. When you do that, you create a connection that's rooted in authenticity, not obligation. And isn't that what we all want? To be seen, not for what we reveal, but for who we are in the quiet moments, the unspoken spaces, the depths that words can't reach. So the next time you feel the urge to push for answers, to fill the silence, to demand what isn't freely given, pause. Take a breath. Remember that trust is a dance, not a transaction. Allow yourself to step back and let the other person meet you in their own time, in their own way. And in that space, you'll find something far more valuable than words. You'll find the truth of the connection, whatever that truth may be. And you let go of the need to control, you create room for the genuine to emerge. And that is where the real beauty of relationships lies, in the space where neither person feels compelled to prove anything, yet both feel deeply seen and profoundly valued. There's a certain power in restraint, in knowing when to hold back and when to let go. In relationships, this can feel counterintuitive, because we often equate love and connection with giving everything our time, our energy, our secrets, even our pain. But there's a fine line between offering and overextending, between sharing and overexposing. And if we don't tread that line carefully, we risk losing not just ourselves, but the very connection we're trying so hard to nurture. When you give too much of self, whether it's out of fear, obligation, or a desire to prove your worth, you're not actually strengthening the bond. You're diluting it. You're overwhelming the space where connection lives. Think about a conversation where one person does all the talking, filling every pause with their thoughts, their stories, their confessions. It's not dialogue, it's a monologue. And while the intention might be to connect, the result is often disconnection, but the other person feels crowded, even unseen. So the same happens in relationships when we're too quick to give away everything about ourselves. It's not about keeping secrets or playing games, it's about pacing. Just like a good book unfolds chapter by chapter, relationships deepen in layers. If you reveal all the twists and turns of your story too soon, you take away the sense of discovery, the joy of getting to know each other gradually. You deny the other person the chance to lean in, to ask questions, to show genuine curiosity. And why do we do this? Often it comes from a place of insecurity. We think that by giving more of our time, our attention, our vulnerabilities, we can secure the other person's affection. But love, real love, doesn't work like that. It's not a trade. You don't earn someone's commitment by overextending yourself. In fact, the opposite often happens. The more you give without boundaries, the more the other person pulls away. Not because they don't care, but because the dynamic becomes imbalanced. They feel pressure where there should be freedom, expectation where there should be ease. Restraint, then, isn't about withholding to manipulate or control. It's about preserving your energy, your mystery, your dignity. It's about recognizing that you are not an open book to be read by just anyone. You are a library, rich and complex, with stories that deserve to be discovered slowly and respectfully. Not every chapter is meant to be shared immediately. and not every reader is meant to have access to the whole collection. This isn't just about protecting yourself from being hurt. It's also about fostering true connection. When you share selectively and intentionally, you create space for reciprocity. You allow the other person to meet you halfway, to open up in return. You build a relationship that's based on mutual curiosity and respect, not one-sided vulnerability. Of course, this requires trust not just in the other person, but in yourself. Trust that you are enough as you are, without over-explaining or over-giving. Trust that the right person will value you not for how much you reveal, but for the authenticity behind what you choose to share. Trust that your worth isn't tied to how much you do for someone else, but to who you are at your core. It's important to remember, too, that restraint isn't about closing yourself off. It's about being discerning. There's a difference between being guarded and being grounded. When you're grounded, you're not afraid to share yourself, but you do so with intention. You know that your energy is precious, and you choose to invest it where it will be appreciated and reciprocated. You recognize that not every relationship deserves the same level of access to your heart. And that's not selfish, it's wise. In this discernment lies your power. The power to walk away from connections that drain you. The power to attract relationships that uplift you. The power to hold space for yourself even in the midst of connection. And when you embody this power, you set the tone for how others treat you. You teach them not with words but with actions that your energy is valuable, your time is meaningful, your heart is sacred. So the next time you feel the urge to give more than you're comfortable with, pause. Ask yourself, am I sharing from a place of authenticity or from a place of fear? Am I giving because I want to or because I think I have to? And most importantly, am I leaving room for the other person to meet me where I am? So, when you honor your boundaries, you honor yourself. And when you honor yourself, you create the foundation for a relationship that's not only fulfilling, but sustainable. So, hold back when you need to, not out of reluctance, but out of reverence for your energy, your story, and the beauty of letting connection unfold naturally. When it comes to sharing our aspirations, it's easy to assume that talking about our goals will inspire or even motivate us further. Yet there's a hidden risk in revealing too much about our dreams, especially in the early stages. You see, your dreams are delicate things, fragile, vulnerable, like seedlings just beginning to push through the soil. They need the right environment to grow one of nourishment, patience, and quiet strength. And sometimes that means keeping them close, protecting them from the world's unpredictability. When you share your aspirations too freely, you expose them to an array of reactions: enthusiasm, indifference, skepticism, or even outright negativity. And while you may think you're prepared for whatever comes, the truth is these responses can seep into your mind and alter your perception of your own path. Someone's casual doubt or offhanded remark can linger in your thoughts, planting seeds of insecurity that weren't before. Instead of focusing on the work ahead, you might find yourself questioning the dream itself or wondering if it's even possible. Beyond that, sharing your goals too soon can also create a sense of false accomplishment. The act of telling someone what you plan to do often gives a temporary rush of satisfaction, almost as if you've already achieved it. You might find yourself basking in the approval of others, feeling validated simply because they admired your ambition. But here's the thing: that momentary boost doesn't translate into real progress. It's like eating sugar. When you're hungry, it satisfies for a moment, but leaves you with nothing of substance. The real work of chasing a dream is quiet. It happens in moments of solitude, in the spaces where there's no applause, no audience. It's in those hours where you doubt yourself, but keep going anyway, where you make mistakes and learn from them. And it's precisely because this work is so personal, so deeply tied to who you are, that it needs to be protected. When you hold your goals close, you create a space where they can develop without interference, where you can refine your vision without distraction. Of course, this doesn't mean you should never share your dreams. There will come a time when sharing is not only appropriate but necessary, when you need guidance, collaboration, or support. But even then, discernment is key. Ask yourself, who am I sharing this with and why? Are they someone who will truly understand, someone who will encourage me without trying to take control of my vision? Or am I sharing out of a need for validation, out of a hope someone else's belief will bolster my own? And this is where the real challenge lies. It's not just about keeping your aspirations to yourself. It's about building the internal strength to sustain them on your own. It's about cultivating faith in your abilities, in your process, in the unique journey that only you can take. Because ultimately, your dreams are yours to fulfill, not anyone else's. No amount of external validation can substitute for the quiet confidence that comes from knowing we're on the right path. There's a certain power in this quiet confidence. It's not loud or boastful, it doesn't seek attention or approval. But it's steady, unshakable. When you move with this kind of energy, people notice not because you've told them what you're doing, but because they can see it in your actions, in the way you carry yourself. It's the kind of power that draws people in, that makes them curious, that inspires without trying to. And it comes not from shouting your goals to the world, but from committing to them wholeheartedly in private. So the next time you feel the urge to announce your plans, pause. Take a moment to ask yourself, sharing will truly serve your journey, or if it's simply a distraction. Remember that your aspirations are precious, and not everyone will understand them or need to. By keeping them close, you're not being secretive or selfish, you're being intentional. You're honoring the process, giving yourself the space to grow without the noise of outside opinions. And when the time comes to share not your aspirations, but the results of your efforts, you'll find that the world's response matters far less than you thought. Because by then, you'll have built something real, something solid, something that speaks for itself. And in that moment, you'll realize that the quiet work was worth it. You'll see that the strength you cultivated in solitude was not just for the dream, but for yourself. That's the kind of power no one can take away. There's a profound truth about insecurities. They are the shadows we cast upon ourselves, the doubts that whisper when we are quiet, and the fears that emerge when we feel seen. These vulnerabilities are part of being human, yet how we choose to handle them makes all the difference. The temptation to reveal them, to seek comfort by placing them in someone else's hands, can feel overwhelming. But there's a power in knowing when to pause, when to keep certain aspects of yourself sacred, until you are ready to share them from a place of strength, not fragility. Insecurities often feel heavier than they really are. They have a way of magnifying themselves in our minds, convincing us they're far more visible to others than they truly are. But the irony is, the more we expose them, the more we give them life. Sharing them too soon, or with someone who hasn't earned that level of trust, can turn what should be moments of healing into opportunities for misunderstanding or even exploitation. And that isn't always intentional sometimes. The people we turn to simply don't have the capacity to hold what we're offering. I think of your insecurities like tender wounds. When you expose them prematurely, they're vulnerable to the elements, to the judgment or indifference of others, even to your own self-criticism. But when you protect them, when you take the time to nurture yourself and understand where those feelings come from, you create the conditions for genuine healing. It's not about hiding, it's about cultivating a sense of wholeness within yourself before inviting someone else into those tender spaces. When you reveal an insecurity to someone who hasn't proven their intentions or capacity to hold it, the dynamic can shift. Instead of feeling supported, you may find yourself seeking constant reassurance or validation. This can create a dependency that, far from alleviating your insecurity, feeds it. The more you look outward for someone else to fix what feels broken inside, the more you lose sight of your own ability to mend yourself. But what happens when you choose to sit with your insecurities instead of handing them over? When you explore them on your own terms, you begin to see them not as flaws, but as clues to your inner world, to the fears and experiences that have shaped you. Insecurities, when handled with care, can become teachers. They can show you where you need to grow, where you need to forgive, where you need to let go. This is not to say you should carry your burdens alone. There is immense value in sharing your struggles with those who've earned the right to hear them. But that's the key: they must earn it. Someone who truly sees you, respects you, and values you will not judge you for your vulnerabilities. They will hold space for them without trying to fix or diminish them. They will remind you of your strength even as you express your fears. The challenge is in discerning who deserves that level of access to your inner world. Not everyone is equipped to meet you there. Some may unintentionally use your insecurities against you, not out of malice, but because they don't understand the weight of what you've shared. Others may dismiss them, leaving you feeling even more isolated. And then there are those rare few who will treat your vulnerabilities with the care they deserve. These are the people worth waiting for, the ones who will walk beside you without trying to carry you or push you forward before you're ready. It's also worth considering the energy you bring into relationships. When you lead with your insecurities, you risk defining yourself by them. You present a version of yourself that feels incomplete, as though you're asking the other person to fill the gaps. But when you approach relationships from a place of self-awareness and self-acceptance, you bring your whole self to the table. You say, "This is who I am in all my complexity. I am not perfect, but I am enough." That energy shifts everything. It creates connections based on mutual respect, not dependency. The journey to this place of self-acceptance is not always easy. It requires patience, reflection, and sometimes the courage to seek help from a mentor, a therapist, or a trusted friend. But the reward is worth it. When you learn to hold your insecurities with compassion, they lose their power over you. They become quieter, less intrusive. And eventually they may even transform into strengths, the scars that remind you of how far you've come. So before you share your deepest doubts, take a moment to ask yourself, am I sharing this from a place of need or a place of trust? Am I looking for someone to fix me, or am I inviting someone to walk with me as I do the work myself? When you choose to honor your journey in this way, you create relationships that are rooted not in fear, but in love. Love for yourself and love for the connection you're building. In the end, your insecurities do not define you. They are not flaws to be hidden or burdens to be passed on. They are part of your story, yes, but they are not the whole story. And when you embrace them with grace and courage, you remind yourself and those around you that true strength comes not from being unbroken, but from knowing how to rise again and again.